Peace. Barghani, Islam, Salam, Hetepu, Rahubat, Ginolako Ninani, Chief Noble, Bandele, Elamine, back in the building. Today, we're going to build on a very, very serious topic. Not to say that other topics are not serious, but this is a very serious topic. This video is really to get us to begin to think about what's going on in our communities. So today we're going to discuss the police brutality and the killings and how we must protect ourselves. And I will give my solutions, thoughts and solutions on how to deal with this matter. All right. So before we get into that, please check out this ad.
Yes, knowledge is for the people. Get your books today on indigenous.moors.org, your one-stop shop for indigenous needs.
All right, so please check out our books on Amazon and indigenous.moors.org, the one-stop shop. All right. So with that being said, before we get in this, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and please check out our other videos, and please share this video. We need y'all to like these videos so we can keep growing, right? And if you'd like to donate, please donate. I appreciate all the donations that we've received. Much appreciation. But you can donate on the Cash App, or you can go to Indigenous Moors and donate, all right? So with all that being said, what we're going to get into today is we're going to deal with this police brutality. And this is coming from, everybody's been talking about Sonya Massey and what's happened to her. If you haven't heard, I will show a short clip of her. But basically what has been going on in the community, this is not anything new. We've had several issues with this going on in our community. And this is nothing new. Nothing new at all, right? So, like, I'm just going to show you this clip. If y'all seen it, y'all seen it. But, I just want to...
You don't want the whole world to know how sick you are.
I just want to...
Cause a lot of problems for us.
You've gone too far. What did you do? Is everything okay? No.
All right, let's go. So, I'm going to show this clip. Hopefully it'll show again. What the heck is going on? Let me replay. All right, so let's go here.
And as you're about to see, the seemingly root county deputy, Sean Grayson, and his partner earlier this month.
What took you so long to answer the door?
Oh, I was trying to put on some clothes, sir.
Doing all right mentally?
Yes.
Sure?
My medicine and stuff.
All right.
Once inside her Springfield home, Deputy Grayson asked Massey to check on the stove.
We don't need a fire while we're here.
The situation quickly escalates.
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I would rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
Huh?
Rebuke you in the name of
No, I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in your fucking face.
Massey begins to set down the pot and then can be heard apologizing. Grayson fired 3 times, hitting Massey in the face.
I mean, what else do we do? I'm not taking hot boiling water to the face.
What made him kill my daughter?
James Wilburn is Massey's father.
A person like that, because of his white privilege, allows him to think he can do something like that and get away with it.
Craig Futterman, founder of the Civil Rights and Police Accountability Project at UChicago, reviewed the body camera video.
Well, first I saw a woman who was clearly a little bit out of sorts, but didn't look and didn't get off in appearance to any reasonable person that she'd pose a threat of harm.
Grayson is now charged with murder as the Massey family looks for justice and begins to heal.
All right, that's enough. So I wanted to show that just so it can be fresh in our mind. So as y'all know, it looks like she was allegedly, she was killed based off of nothing. She said, rebuke you in the name of Jesus, and she was killed. This is one out of many, many, many. We can't even count how many of our brothers and sisters that have been murdered by police for nothing and had no weapons. There are so many of our brothers and sisters who have been killed with no real reason for death. And it continues to happen, and it has been happening forever. I mean, we can look back to the Panther Party, and the reason why the Black Panther Party was even created was because of police brutality. So there has not been any real significant change in how the police deals with people, particularly melanated people. And I don't know what it will take for us as melanated people to finally get enough of it. Now, I know that we've got the Black Lives Matter movement, which is a joke, okay? They've been, maybe the Black Lives Matter started out with a good purpose, but it has been caused and infiltrated, right? And we're still left with police brutality, all across the board. There was another, I'm gonna show you another one real quick. There was a brother, if you guys, now this one is recent. All right, I think I got it up. I may not have it up, but there was a recent video where, well, not a video, but there was a recent incident where a brother was killed dealing with the police. Now he was in a 7-Eleven, and he had mental problems, and he was aware of his mental problems, and he asked the 7-Eleven clerk to call the police to get him some help because he felt like he was having a mental breakdown. So when the police get there, they take him, they arrest him or whatnot, but they wind up tasing this brother and beating this brother to death. Okay, and the brother called for help, just like Sonya Massey. Sonya Massey called for help. So it's like you're calling the police for help, and they are the reason why you're dead. Okay. Now, what's crazy about this one and Sonya Massey, particularly Sonya Massey, is that I'm gonna show this one. What's interesting about Sonya Massey is this, that let me see if I can pull this up. Even officers are going against her, right? I want to show you this. All right.
Officers going into Sonya Massey's home in Illinois after being called for assistance. She thought that somebody was
Let's
disturbing
look
her
at this.
peace. She calls the peace
If y'all in
officers
the
and
building,
ends up
let me
with a
know if you
bullet
can
in her
hear
head
the video.
by said police officers. A lot of people have spoken out against this situation. A lot of people have voiced their opinion, their frustration, their heart, their anger regarding the situation, watching a woman, a black woman in particular, being gunned down, watching a human being. I think sometimes we say black and people just automatically get mad. All right, let's break it down. A human being was shot. He's from, but obviously he's a police officer, and he had a lot to say about what we all witnessed on social media or wherever you may have witnessed it a few days ago. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. I'm going to play the clip of this police officer explaining what he saw and explaining how he feels about the murder of Sonya Massey. Let's go.
Hey guys, some of y'all have tagged me and some of you have messaged me for my take on the incident that happened in Springfield, Illinois. And my take is this. Miss Sonya Massey had some things going on. That night it appeared Miss Massey needed help, but instead Miss Massey was murdered. That's my short take on it. Cut and dry. She was murdered by a thug that had a badge and gun and an evil spirit. The longer version is I watched this video. I had to rewatch it to make sure I saw what I thought I saw the first time. And it really bothered me, as I know it bothered you if you've seen it. I fast forwarded to the part right before he shot, put my ear to the phone, closed my eyes. For some reason, I think I can hear better when I do that, to make sure I heard the back and forth like I thought I did. Let's rewind. First off, the guy that shot her was already a little ticked over asking her for her license, and she couldn't find it. First off, she didn't have to give him her license. She was in her home. In her home. There was no reason for her to give him her license. Fast forward, pot of water. His partner is the one that told her to go around there and get it. He's standing pretty close. Situational awareness. He backs up and moves off to the side, kind of chuckling about it. He didn't fear her, but he wasn't taking any chances at all. Completely understandable. She asked, "Where are you going?" He says, "Away from your hot, steaming water." Then she says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." But she's not talking to that guy. She's looking at the guy that ends up shooting her. He says, "Huh?" She says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." This sets him off. I rewatched it. I listened. I rewatched it over and over. She is not trying to close the gap on him. She is not drawing back to throw the hot water on him. He goes off at being rebuked. I believe this wholeheartedly. Y'all can make fun of me if you want to. I believe this. What does he say? "You better effing not, or I swear to God, I will shoot you in the effing face." At which point, she's scared to death. Pot goes on the counter. Nothing in her hand. She cowers down, understandably. He saw her put the pot down. He keeps saying, "Drop the pot, drop the pot, drop the pot." She starts peeking back up. What does he do? Still nothing in her hands. Pot still on the counter. He follows through what he told her he was going to do. He shot her in the effing face. Murdered her. During the aftermath.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. Now, like I said, this officer plainly, clearly, which is very different from most cases, because, you know, most officers are going to take the side of the officer. And You know, that right there shows a lot to me, right? Let me see what's going on in here. Right. So we gonna get into this. I see the sister right here, Sister Mama Bear has created and said the reason why they do what they do is because you're not in your correct status. Well, um, I think that is a lot to be said about that, and that's true. You know, me being like I said, I am an American Moor. You know, I do claim the political status of a Moor, but to not even getting that far yet. There's a lot of things that I feel like the community is not doing. And I'm not blaming the community for the police brutality, because the police are here to protect and serve the property and in the neighborhoods. So I'm not against that, but what I'm saying is what can we do? Because it's time for melanated people to protect themselves, right? So what I want to do is look at a few things. First, I want to look at this, because one thing I hear, you know, I hear a lot of what we call Albion, so-called white people. They always are trying to downplay the killing of or the unaliving, the murdering of melanated people. They're always trying to say that we are exaggerating what's going on with us, right? Because they always got their rose-colored glasses on. But let's look at something, right? Let's look at the what is it? The statistics of the number of people shot to death by police in the United States. And this is from 2017 to 2024 by race. Okay, so if we look at this chart, and you can see white, black, Hispanic, other, and unknown. Now, I don't know what unknown means. You know what I mean? Like, y'all give me what y'all think unknown mean in the comment section, right? But what I'm seeing right here is let's look at it. Let's go through this whole chart. Let's look. So when you look at this chart and you click on it or whatnot, it's saying that in 2017 it was 458 Albion, so-called white people, that were murdered by police, and it was for blacks 222. Now, when you look at this, like when you just look at the chart, you're like, oh well, you know, there's more, you know, so-called white people being murdered. So the fallacy that so-called blacks are having is a lie. But we all know that the ratio of so-called white people to so-called black people in the United States, we know that there's a lot more Albions in the United States. There's a lot more. So when you're looking at this number, it's reflecting based on the population. So being that there's way more so-called white people in population, which I should look at in a minute, but being that there's more white people in the United States population, 458 versus 222, the ratio is very high. If you break down that ratio, they're killing a lot more black people by population than they are white people. Okay? So let's look at it. We went from there. Let's see, 458, 450. Look. So, you know, it went up one number the next year for whites, and it went up several for blacks. Let me see something. So it went down for whites, and more so-called blacks were killed. You see that? So it went down a little bit, but the number of blacks being killed on a yearly basis, the ratio is a lot higher. So let's get here to 220. Let's get here to 2024. So far this year, we're not even done with this year. And look how close we are to white and black being killed, being that there, like we said, there's way more so-called white people in the United States. And there's only, what, 62, 3? It's only a 63 person difference in 2024. And this is right, and we're under what you call a liberal, administration that's supposed to be helping us. This is supposed to be the anti-lynching bill was supposed to have been passed by Biden, but it doesn't reflect what's going on with the police. And the fact that even Donald Trump is even opening his mouth to say that he wants to give police immunity is even more reason for us to quit BSing around. Like, it's time for melanated people to stop asking the system for help because they're not helping. I did a video years back about how the police are nothing but the updated version of the plantation police. So, plantation police were policing property, right? Because melanated people were property. And today, police are nothing but protecting property, protecting the interest of the power structure. They are not here to protect and serve. There are many reasons why I believe that the police are not here to protect and serve. And it does go deeper than just being your status, which I do believe that being so-called black does play a part in what's going on. But I don't believe that being black is the only reason why we're seeing these murders, right? I think there's a lack of effort somewhere down the line that we have dropped the ball, because when I look at the 60s and the 70s, I look at what we call the so-called Black Power movement, and when they moved from civil rights into the Black Power, that they were tired. Even in the 50s, even with the civil rights movement, melanated people, so-called black people, were tired of trying to get help from the establishment. And so they began to take the matters into their own hands. What I am seeing today is that we have dropped the ball as in regards to taking the matters into our own hands. It is time for melanated people, so-called black people, to protect their own. Okay? It's time for melanated people to protect their homes. I look at Sonya Massey and I say, this sister she had children. And when I look at the situation, why are we forced to only have to call the police? Like, why, we all as melanated people look at the police. So that's probably the police rolling by now. You hear the sirens. But what we have a problem is when something goes wrong in our community, we call the same people who we talk about all day. As melanated people, we talk about the police. We like, FTP, and we have no real respect for the police, and they're always in our communities doing things. But yet, as soon as something goes wrong, we call the police. And is it something that we've been trained to do? Or is it because we don't have choices? Or is it both? Because I think that we have to start looking at the alternatives that we might have. So one of my first alternatives to the policing problem would be that we look toward our spiritual aspect. What I mean by that, what I mean, what I'm saying is all these churches, you know, we got churches, we got temples, we got mosques, we got all these different institutions that do not have a security team. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at this because, you know, when we talk about, like, let's say I'm going to use the Nation of Islam as an example. All right. The Nation of Islam has their own security. Does your church have your own security? Does the Zion Baptist Tabernacle Church have their own security? Like, I don't never see that. But what I'm gonna show you is this. Let's look at this. I want to show you an example of using your religion for security. All right, let's look at this. I want to look at the fruit of Islam. Have y'all heard of the fruit of Islam? Yes. Most of my people probably that watch this show have heard of the fruit of Islam. Now, the fruit of Islam, we're going to look at exactly what this means. Okay. The fruit of Islam is, listen, the security and disciplinary wing of the Nation of Islam. Check. It says it has been described as its paramilitary wing. Check. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay. To my Moorish brothers, because we say, oh, we're not in our correct status, but Moors getting killed. Moors are getting killed just like anybody else. You see what I'm saying? Because why? Because we don't have an alternative to the police. Now, I'm not saying that the police may not be called out, but what I'm saying is we don't have anything that buffers between the police. There's no buffer. There's no security between the police. There's a song by KRS-One that often said, the song was, the police are here to protect us, but who protects us from you? That is a very key point that we have to look at. Who is protecting us from the police? We're not protecting ourselves from the police, right? So let's go further. It says the fruit of Islam wear distinctive blue, brown, and white uniforms and caps, and all have units at all NOI temples. So they're all at any Nation of Islam temple, they have a fruit of Islam wing part of it, right? So let's look at the Honorable Louis Farrakhan as head of the nation, is commander in chief of the fruit of Islam, and his son is the second in command of the supreme captain. The woman's counterpart to the fruit of Islam is Muslim girls training. Okay, so like we talk, like a lot of us talk about the Nation of Islam. They talk about these things, you know, they talk about what they're not doing, this and that. But I want to show you this because it's a blueprint. Okay, it's a blueprint. As Moors have some type of security, but not to the extent of the fruit of Islam. And this is why I wanted to show the fruit of Islam, because they are, to me, one of the best examples of melanated people organizing and putting together a well-organized team of security. So why can't we do this? Why can't we use fruit of Islam? Now I want to show you something, because this is going to bring us into what we're going to discuss even further. So I'm going to skip over the history, okay? Now what I want to show you is this. It's called the NOI Security Agency. So check dig. I don't even know if many people knew this part, right? I mean, I think some of us knew some of it, but it says in 1988, the NOI created. Let me blow this up a little bit so y'all can see it. I mean, so it says In 1988, the NOI created a separate security agency using members of the FOI. The agency received contracts primarily to patrol and staff housing project complexes in tough urban areas like Baltimore, DC, Philly, Chicago, and LA, and received at least $20 million in the 1990s for security work. The NOI security was a notable success in DC projects particularly, but had difficulty in others and faced opposition by some members of the United States Congress. So you see how they do it, and an Anti-Defamation League. Now I'm gonna say this, the U.S. Congress, and the Nation of Islam, Nation of Islam has very fiery rhetoric, or they have in the past, being spoken very highly against so-called white people. So, I mean, I'm not with it, but I can see why the U.S. Congress probably was going to say something because of their rhetoric. But nonetheless, it also has faced scrutiny from federal agencies for racial and gender preference in hiring. So, and from the IRS for withholding taxes from employees. So, those are some of the issues they had. But what we're looking at is the fact that the NOI has been able to create a security team. Now, why is this important? It's because it is our due diligent need to create our own security team to secure our own neighborhoods. It is very important for us to do this. So I wanted to show this because we have to organize in order to create what we need. Okay, just like we organized in the 60s when we created the Black Panther Party, we need to organize today to create something bigger than Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter, is, like I said, compromised, but it still didn't have the component that it needed to protect the community. The Black Lives Matter doesn't patrol and protect the neighborhood. So what I'm saying is that instead of Sonya Massey having to call the police because she heard something, what if we had contractual agreements with the melanated so-called Black community where we contract with a security team, and the security team could be a spiritual, religious security team, so that we're covered under the First Amendment. But this security team has a contract that would say and stipulate that if you have any problems, issues, disputes, whether it's domestic violence or anything of those type of in that nature, that they would call the security team to handle the situation and not call the police. Okay, so even that even means that if you see something going on in that community, whether it be somebody getting mugged, killed, or assaulted, that somebody could call the security team, and the security team would come out and do something about it. So let's look at a couple other things, right? I'm not going to keep y'all too long, but I definitely had to address this. One of the things that I've noticed is when we see so-called white people, right? When we see so-called white people, they create these requirements. There's two things that I see that so-called Albions do. So-called white people, right? White people. One of the things is they create their own gated community. Okay, so these people become part of a gated community, and when they become part of the gated community, they are under contract. And in many cases, under contract, they are not allowed to call the police unless there are certain circumstances that they have to call. But in most cases, they are under contract to call security and not the police. And they have their community gated off so that you won't have any intruders. You don't have foreign people to your community coming into your community. For one, right? The so-called black community is so open to everybody comes into the black community. There's no discrepancy, right? Even our brothers and sisters, they'd rather harass their own and talk about they own the block. And they don't own jack shit, right? But they want to act like they control a block and they own it, and they want to try to, regulate what goes on that block, but they won't regulate the community, right? So they have this false perception of, control. But what this is showing is creating your community where you know who's coming in and you know who's coming out. Okay? If we live in this community, why don't we organize to basically have what we call some type of gated community? So, I'm showing this because, like I said, these are what so-called white people do. White people, they gate up. You know what I'm saying? And then if they don't gate up, what do white people do in their communities? Like a community that's not gated. What do they do? Why are the police so nice to them? It's not because they're white per se and that we're so-called black, but one thing is that those people in the community, they donate money to the police. So the police are under some obligation to patrol and do more for that community because the people who are paying them, in a sense, are that community. They're giving them more money so they can have more things, right? But in our community, because of our hatred for the police, which is justified, I'm not saying that. Our hatred for the police makes us not want to give money to the police. We want to defund the police. So we want to take away from the police, which the police have no real obligation, right? So let's look at this. I swear, man, this street got so many police like sirens every day. But look, so it says requirements for converting your neighborhood into a gated community. It says communities are increasingly considering cellular electric gates when converting their neighborhood into gated communities because modern access solutions can provide enhanced control. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at discuss community gating with community members. So one of the things that we need to do is like when we have our community meetings, which, we never go to our community meetings. So, so-called white people or people who are really not in touch with the community are having meetings every month in your community, in your neighborhood, to discuss certain issues. So I think in some instances it would be something to start to discuss gating the community, creating dialogue in what we're going to do in our community about police. Okay. Creating a membership and having security. So having your own gated community with security. I'm showing you this because it's something that's there. It is something that's possible. You guys are like, oh, this, like, the thing about the so-called black people is that they're not using the resources that they do have to their exposure. As a melanated people, we spend $1 trillion a year, and we do not take where that $1 trillion do we spend on security for our neighborhoods? How much of that money do we put back into our communities? I just want to know, because all I see is everybody got to have some Jordans, some new MJs, everybody got to be, they're spending all their money outside their community so they can look good. And then they're crying, and we're all upset when the police kill somebody. But we really haven't done anything and put any money into the situation, right? So my issue is that we got to start coming together and looking at the solutions instead of just crying and being upset and tearing up our stuff, or seeking retribution. Those are not going to stop the police from killing people. And this is not even just about black people, but like the police becoming more militarized. They are much more they have much more violent tendencies. And so, in general, we need to find solutions outside the police. The police should be your last resort. Okay? So let's look. It says no weather gated communities are possible. So we have to look to see. Communities stand to benefit from having gate and often left ungated because local ordinances that make having a gate difficult or costly. So some local governments have a ban on gated communities. Although there are clear social advantages to using gates, some local governments ban gates for a wide variety of reasons. So what I'm saying is, let's start looking at our community. Let's go to the mayor. Let's go to the mayor and start suggesting that we have money to put on our security. That as taxpayers, that we have the right to, demand alternative security. Like, we don't want to defund the police. I'm not saying defund any police. I'm not saying get rid of the police. Because that's an issue in itself. But when you can secure your own, there's no need for the police to come out. Right? Check. Okay. So what I'm saying, in this day and age, the technology for gated communities are a lot better. So look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. Look what people are doing with their money, like communities. They're taking their money and getting community gates, and they've got these technologies. They got facial recognition. They got 4-digit PIN pads. They got license plate readers. You see what I'm saying? They got all these things that we can use to secure our neighborhood. My question is, do you guys want to secure your neighborhood? Because I often feel like, not to like, I'm not shifting blame on the police, because the police are wrong and they are what they are, right? But at the same time, I have to look at what we do. What are we doing? All we do is this, keep on going. Talk about Black Lives Matter and how they killing us. And I haven't even got into the fact that there's so much black on black violence. When I talk about Black Lives Matter, we talk about does Black Lives Matter to our own? It's not about just the police. The police look at how we kill our own. how we don't regard other brothers and sisters' lives ourselves. I look at Chicago and I just look at how crazy it is out there, and how on holiday weekends, how the escalating of violence goes up, the escalation. And who is checking us? Like, what I'm saying is, if we had our own, police force, or I won't even say police force because we don't need it, but if we had our own security force, okay, that were armed, we had our own armed police force that we presented to the community, and that we asked the community to chip in every month, or chip in and donate money so that we can pay the security to secure us, and that we can have security that look like us, that come from the community, that would secure its own community. Because a lot of times when you allow other people to do things for you, you lose the need. You lose the need to want to secure yourselves. So you don't look at your community with the self-pride that you should. Okay? So I just wanted to show that. Now, I got some more real quick to get into. Let me see where it is. So one of the other solutions that they have, and a lot of these solutions came up during George Floyd, because like I said, these situations that we have with black police is nothing new, right? So let's look at this. So what it said, that you've got many cities that are rethinking the police. Now this is from 2020, right? So like I said, this is from like when George Floyd, was very, fresh in our mind. So when we look at it, says that many cities are rethinking the police, but what are the alternatives? So we need to look at the alternatives, right? Like I said, George Floyd's killing, right? So let's look at this. What is a police alternative? So the term, they say, is vague. So for example, housing the homeless helps reduce crime victimization. Yet public housing or shelter constructions are rarely considered an alternative to police, even though evidence suggests that this reduces violent crime. Targeting community investments can be a police alternative. So helping the homeless in our community, making sure that the community, when we're around, that we're not seeing, suspicious stuff, or just people on the street. Like a lot of, like they said, homelessness, you're going to have crime. You're going to have more crime. And it's not even, it's either black or white, you'll have that. So it says now, additionally, other patrol and first responder organizations have mandates that intersect with those of the police. So for example, police may respond to a 911 call about loose or stray animals, which this is a very common call. But most large U.S. cities have animal control officers, EMTs, and firemen, like police, do first response, first aid work. There may be considered a police alternative given that they perform a similar job, but they are not new institutions. So, for example, like with Sonya, with the sister Sonya and others, the police may not be the first option. You may want to bring out somebody who is not as violent. Police officers are almost, like we said, they're trained almost like in a military style now. Calling a fire officer, or having ability to call other agencies that are not, like, don't have guns. You know what I mean? Or have weapons that they are going to use to kill. That would help bring it down. Now, what I'm saying too is that this goes into what I'm saying about our community. If our community had a hotline that allowed them to call the hotline first instead of calling the police. So, one of the other things they talk about is decriminalization helps reduce crime. So, decriminalizing of drugs, talking about decriminate, so like marijuana is one drug that has to be decriminalized. And, a lot of people have been shot and killed. A lot of people have been arrested. There's a lot of things that has happened because of marijuana. But now that marijuana is not the drug, it's been decriminalized. You don't hear calls to police about marijuana, right? So these are some of the things, right? Health. Anyone who has done a police ride-along knows that frequently officers respond to health emergencies. So, like, say for example, like I said with Sonya, I'm not saying that there was something mentally wrong with Sonya. I don't know if it was. I couldn't quite see if anything was wrong. She didn't seem like something was off, but a lot of like with the brother that I talked about earlier, who asked for them to call the police because he had mental issues. There are a lot of times that our brothers and sisters are being killed, choked, done very wrong in police hands because of mental issues. And they were told to the police that he's mental. But police ignore this. They think that, oh, you're just saying he's mentally something wrong. It doesn't change the way that the police handle the situation. So if there's a mental issue, you would want somebody else to come out besides the police. The police don't give a damn about your mental health problem, right? So stop calling them. Stop calling the police, right? Anyone who has done a police ride, okay, so it says the majority of police patrol, over 90%, this is according to Seattle, addresses multiple people in mental health crises every month. Typically, the officer responding to a 911 call where the person may be yelling loudly or acting strangely, actions that seem off but do not necessarily warrant an arrest. Right? An officer cannot treat these issues like they were a broken bone or open wound, but arrest and legal violence remains one of the few special powers that officers have. So, like I said, officers, listen, I'm here to give the smoke to the police, right? The police are a nuisance in our communities. They are not necessarily helping us. There seems to be a lot of problems versus they're helping, right? So I'm not here to defend the police. I have a degree in criminal justice, right? And I see the problems with the police department. They are a problem. But for me, one of the things that we have to do is we have to get over that they're a problem. We have to look at how to circumvent the problem. How do we go around the police? How do we begin to train ourselves to rely on each other for protection? Okay? In our communities, we must protect ourselves. So, should we not have institutions that come out and instead of calling 911? Should we not have an app? Like, we can have an app on our phone that we can call. That app will send something out to the neighborhood watch. Okay, which we're gonna get into that. I'm just showing you some of the things that we have to look at when we talk about alternatives to police, right? Because this is what brings the police out. These are the issues that make the police come out and not handle the situation. The police are like the lowest on the totem pole. They are not the most educated people, right? They tend not to be college graduates a lot of times, right? So the ones on the street, the police officers on the street that's running the streets, right? Those are not the most intelligent people. Okay, so let's keep looking, right? So it's saying that U.S. cities have experimented with new health patrol focused patrols, emergency dispatch institutions. One of the oldest is Eugene, Oregon Cahoots program, which was established over 30 years ago. Okay, Eugene has the largest per capita homelessness population in the U.S. But Cahoot officers are unarmed. You see that? And drive around in marked vans, responding to mental health and substance abuse crisis. They have a direct number and also operate through the central dispatch system used by the police. So you see that you can create an institution that can respond and also have access to the same systems that are used by the police and the fire and EMT. So, I mean, what I'm saying is, let's stop being helpless. Let's stop being helpless and hopeless. All right? Let's stop doing that. Now, I'm going to get back to this real quick. Let me check what's going on out here. All right, so let's continue. Let's get to the nook and the cranny of this, man. I'm just trying to get to it. So, like I said, this is Oregon. So we're looking at Oregon examples, right? So we can create our own institutions for this, okay? Because across these other programs, the few trends emerge. First, many are not active or actually public organizations. Rather, they are what? Run by public clinics that contract with local governments. So my thing is this: we need, like, if we're going to create businesses or services, some of these services that we should start looking at, instead of, like in our community, we want to have a detail shop. We want to have, these type of things. Let's put money into having a security team. Let's put money into having the private security team, private clinics. And just like I showed you with the Nation of Islam, you can contract with the local government. So how crazy would that be, that you would go and contract with your local government, showing them that you have a security team that's trained to deal with crisis in your area, and that this will cut down on police brutality. This will cut down on, certain things. You could even use to say that it would help the police, because the police wouldn't have to be doing everything. Okay. So it would, instead of us, I guess, bashing and going against the police, let us just create alternatives. Like, spending so much of our energy being negative and pissed off at the police, let's take that energy and create institutions to protect ourselves. So it says, secondly, the extent to which these can be called police alternatives is controversial, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to, there's a part, okay, so police alternative relationship, the relationship between the police and the so-called black community. There's a very low relationship. Our relationship with the police is very bad. Our communication with the police are very bad. So it says, before I go in, even like with Russell, with Nipsey Russell, what he was planning to do was go and have a meeting with the police. It says, besides calls involving health emergencies, states and localities have examined alternatives to addressing domestic, family, and gender violence. Alternatives here are a little bit trickier, they say, because it says when police are called to address a domestic disturbance, they are called explicitly because they possess special powers of violence and arrest. The cops are the last resort. You hear that? The cops are a last resort. Okay? The cops should be, and that's what I'm saying to y'all. The cops should be the last resort to police brutality. Thus, that will cut down, because like I said, we so quick to call them. Hold on, y'all. All right, so what I'm trying to show you guys is another way. We got to start thinking. So it says right here, it says police alternatives. It says domestic, like, so for example, domestic violence is an issue. Sometimes of domestic violence escalate. And so you call the police out, right? But what if, like I said, what if we had a centralized effort in our community to have people contract with this security team that we have? So let's just say we got a security called the Marcus Garvey Security Force, right? And the Marcus Garvey Security Force will contract with the community. So what we would do is we'd have people sign up for security when we would have maybe a drive. So like let's say, we have people at your local grocery stores. You have people out there soliciting. We would go to a grocery store. We would ask them, could we set up a table here for our Marcus Garvey security, right? And so then when people come in, we would talk to them about helping with the community and things of that nature. And then we would have a contract. And if they enjoyed what we said, if they agreed with what we said, then we would have them sign a contract. And with that contract, they would donate so much money a month. So let's just say, I'm just throwing this figure out here, like, because we know we're not going to spend $50 a month on security, right? But what if we were saying, hey, $5, $10 a month? So if the whole community, like let's say a whole community of 500 to 1,000 people in the community was giving, $5 a month, $10 a month. That would be like $5,000 to $10,000 a month that we would get in donation for security, right? Plus, if we had a contract with the city or the community, like if you have a mayor or a community board and have a contract with them, so that this contract would stipulate that if there was issues with domestic violence or anything else, that you would call us first to try to de-escalate the situation. And then from there, if the Marcus Garvey security team decided that it was bigger than what they could handle, they would call the police. But when they call the police, they would be there to monitor the situation, and they would be the official record keeper of what happened on the situation. So when the police show up, they would have their own video camera, right? So we would be there. Marcus Garvey security team would be there with their camera to make sure that the police are doing their job. Okay? So that would be the buffer between the police, that the police will only be called out when matters have gone to the last straw. So it's saying that the variety of police alternatives to domestic violence response tends to be proactive and not reactive. So organizations across the U.S. have experimented with communicative restorative justice practices and targeting counseling initiatives. Okay? HPD employ a special family violence unit, which include counselors. These programs have come with both successes and challenges because these alternatives are not explicitly patrol oriented. They will not be analyzed further, but they do warrant further exploration at this specific moment in time. So I want you guys to put this in your mind. I hope that I'm triggering and I'm hoping that we're looking at alternatives to the community, real alternatives. Okay. So let's go. Let's look at something further. This one right here is something that is local to my area. Now, like I said, before y'all get in there, y'all please like this video, man. Y'all in the building, just hit the like button. It don't take a lot to do that. You know what I mean? And please share this video. If you guys are watching it and you see something in it that is provocative, please share it. Please share this video. So what I'm going to do is show this real quick. And this is really probably, let me see. So let's look at this. This one's called Citizens on Patrol. Now, I'm in the Cincinnati area per se, right? In the Miami Valley, what we call as Moors, we call this the Miami Valley area, which Cincinnati is part of that area, right? So Cincinnati had a big problem with police violence 20 years ago. I'm not saying that the police don't have a problem now, but there was a lot of police violence and police shootings amongst melanated so-called black people roughly 20 years ago. And so I think that there had to become solutions. So one of these things in the solutions was Citizens on Patrol. So let us look. So it says Citizens on Patrol. The history of Cincinnati Citizens on Patrol program. The Cincinnati Citizens on Patrol program was proposed by several Cincinnati City Council members in 1997. So what you got right here is, what if there was enough of us who were to go to our city council with a proposal that we had and that we keep harping on them, okay? Because one of the things you have to do is we have to continuously put our foot on the city council's necks, okay? We can't wait for voting season, okay? We're not talking about voting. We're talking about using our citizen power to put our foot on the necks of the people, because of the necks of the city members, right? Because they work for y'all. But if you don't make them responsible, if you don't make them accountable, I should say, then you're going to continue to have the situation. So it says that this program was modeled after one in Fort Worth, Texas. The city council approved the initial use of, check it out, 35,000 in federal local enforcement block grant money. So that's another thing. Like, is there money in your community? Have y'all checked to see if there's any money in the community that would be able to be used to help facilitate these things? Now it says that the responsibility in developing the program was assigned to the community-oriented police coordinator. The responsibility for administering and coordinating the neighborhood-based program was assigned to district commanders. So so it says 3 target neighborhoods in Cincinnati were chosen. So we got Bond Hill, and they say it's still operating. What's great about it is these programs are still operating. So Bond Hill, Madisonville, and South Fairmont. Now this one is disbanded, but it says council members and police officers attended county meetings in each of the 3 neighborhoods to explain the project and solicit volunteers. Application forms were developed and sent to volunteers. So this right here, this allowed people in the community to become actively involved with protecting their community. Okay, because so many times the police officers are not from that area. You know, most of these police officers are white, and these white officers are in black communities. We all know this, right? So when we've got us in the community volunteering as the buffer to the police, that we may see more success. It says that the COPP training is a 12-hour. So they had a 12-hour program, a seminar. So, you know, they had some type of training, right? So they, in the winter of 2002, a sworn officer was appointed to oversee the Citizens on Patrol program. Okay, so you had an officer overlooking it just to make sure it was okay, you know, to keep it coordinated. It says by the summer of 2002, the program had tripled in size and was very active in 21 of the city neighborhoods. So by 2000, so like in 5 years, it had tripled. During that time, Civilian Coordinating Committee was formed, which connected members to citywide resource networks, enabling them to address quality of life issues more proactively through teamwork. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, let's get on top of something. Let's become proactive. Let's stop reacting. You know what I mean? Let's stop reacting to these situations. It says, so I'm just going to read this part. So it says that while patrols have been predominantly walking and fixed, it became evident that patrols could be much more effective if members had a vehicle to accommodate transportation, special events, handicap needs. So one particularly motivated member, a motivated member of the Madisonville Patrol took the initiative to secure a retired mini school bus, which was painted to match the uniform police cars and decked out with lights and equipment. So my thing is this: the money that we got in our pocket right now, you telling me y'all telling me that we can't put our money together to create our own network of security? And what I mean by that, and you know, one of the other things too, as much as I love the Panthers, I love the Black Panthers and what the Black Panthers was doing. Right? I love what they were doing. But one of the things that happened is there was a lot of animosity toward the police. Now, I understand the animosity, but what I'm saying is, if we focused our animosity on just creating cures instead of trying to call out against the system, because when we do that, we mark ourselves going against them. Our issue is that we don't need to go against anybody. We just need to create our own. We need to create our own. In 2024, there's too much money on the table for us not to. Right? Peace to my brother. Peace to team. How you say? Peace to team GRN. Appreciate y'all. If y'all got any questions in the building, please feel free to throw out some questions, because I'm here to, you know, we're here to try to create. We're trying to create solutions to our problems. That's the key. Okay. Now, one more thing. I didn't show this one. Now, this is one more example, right? One more example. This is called the Marshall Project, nonprofit journalism about criminal justice. So now this particular one is saying that it says sending unarmed responders instead of police. What we learned. So there has been more than 100 response teams nationwide. So it says, but experts say more research on their impact is needed. I'm gonna blow this up a little bit so y'all can see it a little bit better, right? All right. So It says in the 4 years since George Floyd murder, many sweeping attempts to reform police have faltered. So that's my issue. We're trying to reform the police. Reforming the police is like trying to reform racism. You can't reform racism, right? People are racist or have a disliking. You can't reform that. It's very difficult to reform people's ideology, especially, it would take years. If you notice, racism still exists, police brutality still exists. So, no, we're not trying to reform the police anymore. We're past trying to reform the police at this point. Okay, we're not even thinking about the police at this point, right? So it says, but one proposal that has taken hold across the country and continues to spread is launching alternative first response units that send unarmed civilians instead of armed officers to some emergencies. Okay, so now this is my hometown. This is part of the Miami Valley. Another issue in the Miami Valley, right? This is the Midwest we're talking about. So in Dayton, Ohio, trained mediators are dispatched to neighbor disputes and trespassing calls. So what if we had a trained mediator to come out to Sonya Massey's house? So she, instead of her calling the police, she called and she got a neighborhood civilian that was not armed to come out with the dispute. So it says in Los Angeles, outreach workers who have lived through homelessness, incarceration, or addiction respond to 911 calls concerning people living on the street. So, like, instead of you having the police come out there, you have people who have an understanding of the homelessness or have an understanding of the situation. Police look at us like we're scum of the earth. You know what I mean? The police look at us like we're scum. They get so sick and tired of us and our issues or what lack of. They've got these preconceived notions and these stereotypes of us because they're foreigners, right? The police are foreign to our neighborhood. They're foreign to us. So they don't have the same respect and regard for the people that they're protecting, right? So it says in many programs transition out of the pilot phase, they face new challenges. How do they scale up and become big enough to meaningfully reduce the presence of police? See this? This is what we need to be thinking. This is the questions that we need to be asking ourselves. How do we scale up and become big enough to meaningfully reduce the presence of the police? What are we going to do, y'all, to reduce the presence of police? How do cities sustainably fund these new agencies and find the right people to staff them? And are these teams on track to become the sea of change, the sea change in public safety that was promised? Okay. Now, once again, we're back in Oregon. So they're talking about the alternative crisis response. Same thing we talked about. See, these are things that we have to discuss. It says not sending one of these teams could be civil rights violation. So check D. Now, this is a very interesting question. Now we get into the law side. If we put these things together, so it says in Washington, D.C., a social service nonprofit, Bread for the City, look, has sued the city, claiming that sending police to mental health emergencies discriminates against people with mental health disability. Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you all this, people. Could suing the city claiming to sending police into communities that they're not part of, that they don't grow up in, that they don't know, that they're not part of, is sending, let's say, I'm gonna make it, hey, this is gonna be controversial, but it's sending white police officers like they did with Sonya Massey, is sending white police officers into a black community. Is that discriminating against people of melanated descent? Something for you to think about. Something to say, right? So it says that the city started the program in 2021 to send mental health providers to those kind of calls. But according to the lawsuit, just 327 calls were referred in the 2022 fiscal year, less than 1% of eligible calls. So a similar lawsuit is ongoing in Washington County, Oregon, which includes part of Portland. The reason why police response is so harmful may not be because they are an excessive force incident. It's because they are not getting effective treatment, says Michael Perloff, all right, of the ACLU. And it says that one of the lawyers on the case, it says, if you call the EMT for a broken leg and they sent someone who didn't know how to set a broken bone, then they're denying you effective care. Okay, so let's look at this. If they're sending the police in that are not trained, like, let's check it out. Are the police officers trained to deal with the black community? Are white officers trained to deal with diverse communities? So are they trained to go into a black community? Do they understand the politics of the black community? Do they understand the mentality of the black community? Okay. I'm just saying, are these things being mentioned? Are these the things that we're arguing or looking at? You understand what I'm saying? So it's saying that the DC program has been limited by overly strict criteria. At one point, calls would be transferred to the team if they involved someone under 18 or someone who had ingested alcohol or drugs. The lawsuit states, even if a call was deemed eligible, the team was frequently unavailable and police were sent instead. Okay, so let's look at this. The U.S. Justice Department has weighed in. So in February, department officials submitted a filing case arguing that the Americans with Disabilities Act does apply to emergency response systems. A lot of our brothers and sisters have mental issues, y'all. The police are not trained to deal with mental health. The police are not trained to deal with melanated people's mind. They're not addressed. They don't know how to address adverse situations. They're not trained to deal with that. What do you think police are trained to do? Police are trained to use excessive force to investigate a situation. Police investigate, and they only investigate because they're looking for a crime so that they can arrest your ass. They're looking to then they're trained to use excessive force by any means. Okay? And then of course we got the good old blue club, the fraternity of police, which protect the police, and they keep these things secret among themselves. So we're fighting against those type of issues. So this is why we got to have these alternatives, y'all. Now it says getting 911 dispatchers on board is essential. So one of the other things we have to do is look at 911. Now, my suggestion is that we don't call 911. We call our own. We create our own. We get our own phone number. We have our own dispatchers. We create a phone app, and we use alternative. We've got so much. We have so much technology today that we don't necessarily have to rely on the old ways to do things. I remember watching a video on Bobby Seale, one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, and this video probably was like, I want to say like 1990s, like I'm gonna say like I'm gonna say late 90s. It might have been early 2000s. Okay, early 2000s. One of the things that they asked him, they said, "What would you do now in today's time if you were going to have the Panther Party?" He said that he would have people, instead of having guns per se, he would have video recorders. So in today, we got phones, or we have different recording devices. But essentially, he would say that he would arm the people to patrol the street and record suspicious activity. Record the police officers. Instead of standing there with your gun, you would just stand there at a distance that was lawful and record the officer. Right? That stuck with me, because because we're seeing a lot of this going on now because of video cam. If it wasn't for the camera on the other officer, we wouldn't have seen what happened to Sonya Massey. You see, because the officer that shot him, for some reason, didn't have his camera on. But because we're able to have cameras everywhere, we're able to use these cameras to change the scenario. Okay, so it's just saying, let's finish up. So it's saying that cities are looking for ways to get dispatchers on board. So we got to get, if you want to, let's get the dispatchers on board. What I'm saying is, let's create these organizations, let's create teams, let's create groups, organize. Organization is the best way to fight a situation. We have to get back to organizing, y'all. We have gotten so far away from organizing because we feel so inclusive to the society, but we're constantly reminded that we're not inclusive to the society. Just because the so-called white man allows you to go to Walmart and shop in Walmart does not make you inclusive. Just because you can go to the Waffle House doesn't make you inclusive. Because once you go back home, or once you get the police are called on you, you are automatically pulled out of the inclusiveness that you thought you had. Right? So my thing is this. In our community, we got a no snitching rule. Can we change that no snitching rule to no calling the police rule? Let's stop calling the police. Right? Let's create our own organizations to deal with our own people. Okay? And we allow the police to be the last resort. Because this ain't funny. This ain't even funny. So I got the brother right here. I got the sister right here. The sister saying, I am just tuning in, and my brother, you're definitely in alignment with the ancestors. Ashe. This is new way we need to start heading into this. This is definitely, I appreciate this, sister, because y'all, it hurts me when I watch these videos, when I see my people being killed. It's the worst feeling, because we as melanated people, we're connected. We're connected by not just because of how we're looked at and portrayed, but we're connected through our melanin. Our melanin are semiconductors. And just like the internet goes and connects to devices. Our melanin connects us to each other. But we don't act like that. We don't act like we're connected. We're very decisive against each other. And the only way that we're going to move forward in our communities is really for us to connect and organize. So I really hope you guys are able to take some of what was being spoken on. And like I say, please like the video and share this video. Share this video. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, right? Because I want this to go out and make it viral so that we can start thinking about alternatives to the police, and we can stop using the police. We don't have to use the police, y'all. The police are not our friends. The police are not the only alternative to fighting crime. The police are not the only alternative to a dispute, right? Like brothers and like sisters. Sisters, stop calling the police on your brother. Stop calling the police, you know. Now, I understand there are certain issues where you're getting like domestic violence, you're getting beat down, things of that nature. But let's stop using the police against our own. They're already against us. So we should not be using the police. Okay? We should, first of all, first thing to do is look in your community and see if there is already an alternative to police. Because like what we've shown in on this video, there are cities that are using alternatives to police. So the first thing that we need to do when we finish watching this video, let's look for alternatives in our community to the police. Once we find it, then we need to start using it. We become associated with that organization. And if there is not an organization, you should reach out. You should find an organization, reach out, and see how you can start one or how you can bring a chapter of that organization to your city, to your neighborhood. Or start your own. Especially if you are a religious group, if you have a church, if you're in a church or like us, you're in a temple or mosque, what you need to do is go to the minister and ask them, how can we start a religious security team? The reason why I say religious is because you are protected. You have an extra protection with the First Amendment to allow you to assemble and protect other members of the church. So, a church is a community. And a lot of times in the black community, the church is a staple. So if you got a church in your community and you've got members that are in that community that go to that church, why not go to the church and ask them? Or if the minister or the board doesn't want to do it, maybe you suggest creating an organization of unarmed people. Or everything, like you don't have to have a gun. Like the Nation of Islam, they don't even use guns. Their hands are weapons. So what if everybody had a baton and were trained in using a baton? And they had a baton and they were trained to deal with the situation, and they had a camera in their communities and they monitored everything. And that organization would go to their mayor or city council and let them know that what they're doing. and that they're here to help the community, so that they would have a communication and maybe even get some help from the city or the city board or whatnot to even help them assist this. These are the things that we must do, because this would show not just our community, but this would show the world that we think that Black Lives Matter, that we actually do believe Black Lives Matter. Like, we don't have to say it. We don't got to have a organization called Black Lives Matter. We would demonstrate Black Lives Matter. Okay, we would demonstrate that Moorish lives matter, that melanated lives matter, that our community matters. Okay, so with that being said, I'm out, y'all. I definitely appreciate y'all. I appreciate all the donations. I appreciate everything that's being done. Peace, love, light, and love to the community and my people. And check me out on the tomorrow video. We're gonna have, if y'all, for my Moorish brothers, we're gonna have a Moorish powerhouse tomorrow. Okay, we're gonna have brother Abdullah Mosley Bey tomorrow. Brother Shem. We're gonna have me, of course, and we're gonna have King El Bay with a powerhouse discussion tomorrow. So I hope y'all tune in tomorrow, and y'all have a wonderful day. Peace, love.